My name is Margaret Holloway, and I'm 58 years old. After 3 miscarriages, 2 failed in vitro fertilization attempts, and 30 years of heartbreak, my husband David and I had given up on becoming parents. We were too old, we thought. But then our adoption lawyer, Christine Reed, called with a miracle. A birth mother had chosen us specifically. She wanted her baby to go to an older, stable couple. We paid $80,000, our entire retirement savings, and brought baby Sophia home. For 6 perfect months, I finally knew what it meant to be a mother. Then Christine called at 2 a.m. Her voice was shaking. "Margaret, pack a bag and leave your house right now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't call the police yet." The birth mother. She's not who I told you she was. And the people looking for Sophia, they're dangerous. What I discovered about where Sophia really came from, and why someone chose us specifically to take her, made me realize we weren't just victims of an illegal adoption. We were pawns in something much darker. If you're watching this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, because this is a story about how I fought to keep my daughter, and how sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the one you're born into. Let me go back to the beginning. To understand why that phone call destroyed my world, you need to understand what those 6 months with Sophia meant to me. I met David when I was 26 years old. We were both teachers at Lincoln High School in Portland, Oregon. I taught English literature, he taught history. We fell in love over shared lunch breaks and faculty meetings, and we were married within a year. Everyone said we were the perfect couple, and for a while, we were. We started trying for a baby immediately. I was 28, healthy, and optimistic. When it didn't happen right away, we weren't worried. These things take time, everyone said. But months turned into a year, then 2 years. That's when we started seeing specialists. My first pregnancy happened when I was 30. I was so happy I cried for an hour straight when I saw those 2 pink lines. David and I painted the nursery, bought tiny clothes, picked out names. Then at 12 weeks, during a routine ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. The baby was gone. The second miscarriage came 2 years later, at 10 weeks. The third, when I was 35, at just 8 weeks. Each loss carved out a piece of my heart that never grew back. "Maybe your body is trying to tell you something," my mother said after the third miscarriage. She didn't mean to be cruel, but the words cut deep. Maybe I wasn't meant to be a mother, but I wasn't ready to give up. We tried in vitro fertilization when I was 38, 2 rounds that cost us $40,000 and resulted in nothing but disappointment and hormonal chaos. My body rejected the embryos. The doctors said my eggs were poor quality due to my age. That clinical term, poor quality, felt like a judgment on my entire worth as a woman. By the time I was 42, we had given up. David and I mourned the children we would never have, and we tried to build a life that felt complete without them. We traveled, we focused on our careers. We became the aunt and uncle who spoiled everyone else's children at holidays. I retired from teaching at 56, ready to enjoy the freedom of my later years. David planned to retire at 60, and we would travel the world together. We had saved carefully, invested wisely, and had about $150,000 in our retirement accounts. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Then, 10 months ago, Christine Reed called. I had met Christine briefly at a dinner party hosted by my friend Barbara. Christine was an adoption lawyer, and when she heard about our struggles, she had given me her card. "If you ever want to explore adoption," she had said gently, "give me a call. It's never too late." But I had thrown the card away. I was too old for the Fordin adoption, I thought. Who would give a baby to a 7-year-old woman? Somehow, Christine had kept my number. When she called, she said, "Margaret, I know this is unexpected, but I have a situation that made me think of you. A young woman, a birth mother, is looking for adoptive parents for her baby. She's very specific about what she wants. She wants an older couple, stable, financially secure, who will love this baby the way they would have loved their own biological child." When she described what she was looking for, I immediately thought of you. My heart started racing. How old is too old? She specifically requested a couple in their late 50s or early 60s. She said she wants parents who are done chasing careers, who have time and patience, who won't have more biological children to divide their attention. It sounded too perfect. Why would she want older parents? She's very young, just 19. She says her own parents are in their 60s and retired, and that's the kind of stability she wants for her baby. She wants the baby to have what she had growing up, a calm, peaceful home with parents who are present. David and I talked about it all night. We were 58 and 60 years old. Were we crazy to even consider this? Would we be alive to see this child graduate high school? What about college? Weddings? But the yearning I thought I had buried came roaring back to life. One more chance, one last possibility. Let's meet with Christine, I told David. Let's at least hear what she has to say. The meeting happened quickly. Christine explained that the birth mother's name was Sarah Mitchell. She was 19 years old, 7 months pregnant, and she had very specific requirements for the adoptive parents. She didn't want to meet us in person. Some birth mothers prefer distance, Christine explained, but she had read our profile and chosen us. The adoption fee will be $80,000, Christine said. That covers my legal fees, medical expenses for the birth, mother, and all court costs. $80,000, more than half our retirement savings. David squeezed my hand under the table. It's just money, he said. We can always make more money, but we can't get another chance like this. We said, yes. The next 2 months were a blur of paperwork, background checks, home studies, and preparation. We converted our guest bedroom into a nursery. I bought baby clothes, bottles, diapers, a crib. David installed a car seat in our Subaru. Christine called with updates every week. Sarah is doing well. The baby is healthy. Everything is progressing normally. I asked if we could meet Sarah, send her a letter, anything. She prefers to keep her distance, Christine said. Some birth mothers find it easier that way, but she knows all about you, and she's confident in her choice. Sophia Grace Holloway was born on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Christine called us from the hospital. She's perfect, 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Sarah signed the relinquishment papers 2 hours after birth. You can come get your daughter. Your daughter. Those 2 words made me sob with joy. We brought Sophia home that same day. She was so tiny, so perfect, with dark hair and dark eyes that seemed to look right through me. When I held her for the first time, something inside me finally settled into place. This was my daughter, not biologically, but in every way that mattered. The first few weeks were exhausting and wonderful. Sophia woke every 2 hours to feed. I was sleep-deprived and sore and happier than I had ever been in my life. David took paternity leave from his job as a financial consultant, and we spent those early days in a cocoon of new parenthood. By the time Sophia was 3 months old, we had settled into a routine. She slept longer, stretches at night. She smiled at us. She recognized our voices. I couldn't imagine life without her. That's when I started noticing the car. It was a black Honda Accord, and it appeared on our street at odd times. I first saw it parked 3 houses down at 11 p.m. when I was up feeding Sophia. Then I saw it again at 6 a.m. when I was walking her in the stroller. Then again at 3 p.m. There's a car that keeps parking on our street, I told David. Do you think someone new moved in? Probably, David said, barely looking up from his laptop. Or maybe someone's visiting the Hendersons. But the car made me uneasy. I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was inside was watching our house. At 4 months, Sophia started sleeping through the night. I should have been thrilled, but instead I found myself checking on her constantly, making sure she was still breathing, still safe. The black Honda appeared less frequently, but now I noticed other cars, a gray Toyota, a white Ford that seemed to linger too long on our quiet residential street. I think I'm being paranoid, I told my friend Barbara over coffee. But I keep feeling like someone's watching us. New mom anxiety, Barbara said knowingly. I had it with both my kids. You're so afraid something will happen to them that you start seeing threats everywhere. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just an anxious older mother, hyper-aware of how precious and fragile my daughter was. When Sophia was 5 months old, I decided to reach out to Christine with a question about Sophia's medical history. We had received very basic information, Sarah's blood type, family medical history, but I wanted to know more. Did heart disease run in the family? Diabetes? Any genetic conditions we should watch for? I called Christine's office 3 times and left messages. She didn't call back. That was strange. Christine had been so attentive during the adoption process, calling weekly with updates. Now, suddenly, silence. I drove to her office in downtown Portland. The building was a generic office complex, and Christine's suite was on the 3rd floor. When I walked in, the reception area was empty. There was a desk, but no receptionist. The waiting area chairs were dusty, as if no one had sat in them for since weeks. "Hello?" I called out. A door opened, and Christine appeared. She looked terrible, hair uncombed, dark circles under her eyes, clothes wrinkled. This was not the polished, professional woman who had handed us our daughter 6 months ago. "Margaret," she said, and I could hear the strain in her voice. "You shouldn't be here. I've been trying to reach you. I just have some questions about Sophia's medical history." "You need to leave," Christine interrupted. "I'll call you later." "Christine, what's wrong? Are you okay?" She glanced behind her, as if checking to see if anyone was listening. Then she lowered her voice. "I can't talk here. I'll call you. Tonight. Please. Just go." I left, confused and worried. Something was very wrong. That night, I put Sophia to bed at 7 p.m. She went down easily, her little fist curled around her favorite blanket. David was working late. He'd taken on some freelance consulting to help rebuild our savings after the adoption. I was, in the living room, reading, when my phone rang at 9:30 p.m. It was Christine. "Margaret, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to panic." My heart started racing. "What is it? I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this for weeks. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. When I arranged your adoption, I thought everything was legitimate. But I've learned some things recently that—" She paused. "The birth mother, Sarah Mitchell, that's not her real name." "What do you mean?" "I mean she lied to me. And I'm just now discovering the full extent of it." Christine's voice cracked. "Margaret, I think Sophia might have been taken illegally." The room started spinning. "Taken? You mean kidnapped?" "I don't know yet. I'm trying to find out, but there are people looking for her. Dangerous people. I've seen them watching my office. I think they've found you too. The black Honda, the gray Toyota, the white Ford. There have been cars on our street," I whispered. "Listen to me carefully. Don't go to the police yet. These people, if they're who I think they are, they have connections. Police, judges, social workers. If you report this now, Sophia could be taken from you immediately and placed back into a dangerous situation. I need more time to figure out what's really going on." "How much time?" "A few days. Maybe a week. Can you go somewhere safe? Somewhere these people won't think to look for you?" I don't know. Where? Do you have family out of state? Friends? Anyone who wouldn't be obvious?" I thought frantically. "My parents were dead. David's parents were in a nursing home in Florida. Our friends were all in Portland. There's David's brother in Spokane, but too obvious. They'll check family first." Christine was quiet for a moment. "Okay, here's what you need to do. Tomorrow, act completely normal. Don't change your routine. Don't pack anything suspicious. But tomorrow night, late, pack a bag with essentials, clothes, diapers, formula, cash. And leave." "Leave? Just leave our home?" "Yes. I'll call you with a safe location. But Margaret, you need to be ready to disappear for a little while, just until I can figure out the truth and get legal protection for you." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say this was insane, but something in Christine's voice told me she was deadly serious. "Okay," I heard myself say. "We'll be ready. And Margaret, don't tell David everything. Not yet. Just tell him it's a precaution. Sometimes husbands, even good husbands, can panic and do something rash. You need to stay calm and careful." We hung up, and I sat there in the dark, my mind racing. Sophia was upstairs, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that her entire existence might be built on a lie. The next day, I did exactly what Christine said. I acted normal, I took Sophia to her 6-month pediatrician appointment. I stopped at the grocery store. I smiled and chatted with our neighbor, Mrs. Chen. But all day, I felt eyes on me. The black Honda was back, parked at the end of our street. When I drove past, I tried to see who was inside, but the windows were tinted too dark. That evening, when David came home, I told him we needed to pack. Christine called. There's some paperwork issue with the adoption. She thinks it's better if we go stay somewhere else for a few days, just to be safe. Safe from what? She didn't give me details. But she seemed scared, David. Really scared. David looked at Sophia, who was in her bouncy seat, happily chewing on a teething ring. Do you think someone's trying to take her? I don't know. But I don't want to take any chances. We packed 2 suitcases, one for us, one for Sophia. Diapers, formula, clothes, medications. I grabbed our passports and birth certificates, though I hoped we wouldn't need them. David withdrew $5,000 in cash from our savings account. At 11 p.m., we put everything in our car. Sophia was asleep in her car seat, oblivious. David started the engine, and I took one last look at our house, the home we'd lived in for 15 years, where we'd dreamed of raising children, where we'd finally brought our daughter. We pulled out of the driveway. The black Honda was gone, but I knew that didn't mean we were safe. My phone rang as we reached the highway. It was Christine. Where are you? We just left. We're heading north on I-5. Good. There's a motel in Longview, Washington, the Riverside Inn. Check in under a fake name. Pay cash. Don't use your credit cards. I'll meet you there tomorrow morning, and I'll tell you everything I've learned. Christine, please, just tell me now. Whose baby is she? Christine was silent for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, her real name is Isabella Torres, and Margaret, you need to know her mother loved her. But her mother is dead. The Riverside Inn was exactly what you'd expect from a $60 a night motel, peeling paint, flickering neon sign, and a clerk who barely looked up from his phone when we checked in as Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Our room smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner, but it had 2 beds and a bathroom, and most importantly, no one knew we were there. David locked the door, engaged the chain, and wedged a chair under the doorknob. Are we in danger? He asked quietly, looking at Sophia sleeping peacefully in her car seat. Is someone going to try to take her? I don't know, I admitted. But Christine sounded terrified. She said Sophia's real name is Isabella Torres, and her mother is dead. David sat heavily on the bed. Dead how? When? She didn't say. She's coming tomorrow morning to explain everything. Neither of us slept that night. We took turns keeping watch, though we didn't know what we were watching for. Every car that pulled into the motel parking lot made my heart race. Every footstep in the hallway outside made David tense. At 6 a.m., Sophia woke hungry and fussy. I fed her a bottle, changed her diaper, and tried to act like everything was normal. She smiled up at me, completely trusting, completely innocent. Whatever was happening, she deserved the truth, and she deserved to be safe. Christine arrived at 8 a.m., looking even worse than she had 2 days ago. She carried a manila folder stuffed with papers and photographs. Thank you for coming, she said, as I let her into our motel room. I know this is terrifying, but I need you to hear the whole story before you decide what to do. We sat at the small table by the window. David held Sophia, who was chewing contentedly on his finger. Her real name is Isabella Marie Torres, Christine began. She was born February 14th at Sacred Heart Hospital in Portland. Her mother's name was Elena Torres. She was 19 years old. Was? I repeated. Elena died March 3rd, 18 days after giving birth. Christine pulled out a newspaper clipping. The official story was suicide. She jumped from the Morrison Bridge. I stared at the grainy photograph of a young woman, pretty, dark-haired, with sad eyes. My breath caught. Sophia had the same eyes. But you don't think it was suicide, David said. No, I don't. Because 3 days before she died, Elena came to my office. She was terrified, crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake. She told me she hadn't wanted to give up her baby, but someone had forced her. She said if she didn't sign the adoption papers, they would kill her. My hands started shaking. Who? Who threatened her? Christine pulled out another photograph. It showed a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit, standing outside what looked like a hospital. Dr. Richard Castellano. He's the chief administrator of Sacred Heart Hospital. He's also Elena's biological father. I felt the world tilt. Her father forced her to give up her baby? It's worse than that. Elena wasn't just any teenager. She was a patient care assistant at Sacred Heart. She worked in the maternity ward. And about 9 months before Isabella was born, Elena discovered something that could have destroyed Dr. Castellano's career. Christine laid out several printed emails. Elena found evidence that Dr. Castellano was running an illegal adoption ring through the hospital. He was identifying vulnerable pregnant women, teenagers, drug addicts, homeless women, and coercing them into giving up their babies. Then he was selling those babies to wealthy couples for enormous fees. He's made millions over the past decade. My stomach turned. And Elena threatened to expose him? Not initially. She didn't even tell him she knew. But Elena was also pregnant. She'd gotten involved with a man who left when he found out. She was young, scared, and alone. When Dr. Castellano found out his daughter was pregnant, he saw an opportunity. He told Elena that if she didn't give up the baby for adoption and keep quiet about what she'd discovered, he would make sure she was arrested for theft. He'd planted evidence in her locker, stolen medications, forged prescriptions. Elena knew no one would believe her word against his. So she gave up Isabella, I whispered. She had no choice. Dr. Castellano handled everything through me. He told me Elena was a client who wanted a private adoption. He provided fake background information, fake references, everything. I had no reason to suspect it wasn't legitimate. Then why did you call us at 2 a.m.? David demanded. What changed? Elena changed her mind. After 18 days of not being able to sleep, not being able to eat, she came to my office and told me everything. She was going to go to the police. She was going to expose her father and get her baby back, no matter what happened to her. Christine's voice broke. 3 days later, she was dead. And the police closed the case as suicide within 48 hours. No investigation, no questions. Because Dr. Castellano has connections, I said. He has more than connections. He has power, money, influence. Half the judges in Portland have received campaign donations from him. The chief of police plays golf with him. When Elena died, everyone was very quick to accept that a troubled young single mother had taken her own life. I looked down at Sophia, at Isabella sleeping in David's arms. Does Dr. Castellano know where she is? Does he know we have her? Not yet. But he's looking. After Elena died, I started digging into Dr. Castellano's operation. I found records of at least 30 illegal adoptions over 10 years. Some of those babies were taken from mothers who never consented. Some were stolen right from the hospital nursery. Christine met my eyes. I don't know if Dr. Castellano wants Isabella back to cover his tracks, or if he wants her dead to eliminate any evidence. But I know he's dangerous. And I know that legally, you have no right to keep her. What? I stood up. We paid $80,000. We went through all the proper channels. The adoption was based on fraud. Elena was coerced. The consent wasn't voluntary. A judge will void the adoption immediately. Christine's expression was pained. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I thought I was helping you become parents. But I was, actually helping a criminal steal babies. David's voice was cold. So what are we supposed to do? Just hand Sophia back and pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? If you do that, she'll go into the foster system. And Dr. Castellano has connections in child protective services. He'll make sure she ends up somewhere he can control. Or worse, she'll just disappear. Christine leaned forward. But there's another option. What option? Fight for her. Elena is dead, but she left behind evidence of everything: emails, bank records, recordings. I have copies of all of it. If we can expose Dr. Castellano, prove he was running an illegal adoption ring, the courts might allow you to keep Isabella. You've been her parents for 6 months. You've bonded with her. A judge could rule it's in her best interest to stay with you. Might? I repeated. Could? Those aren't guarantees. No, they're not. This will be ugly. It will be expensive. You'll need lawyers, investigators, protection. Dr. Castellano will fight back with everything he has. He'll try to destroy your reputations, claim you knew about the illegal adoption, maybe even accuse you of kidnapping. Christine looked at both of us. But it's the only way to save her and keep her. I looked at David. He was 60 years old, looking at retirement, looking forward to peaceful golden years. Now, I was asking him to go to war with a powerful, dangerous man for a baby that wasn't even legally ours. "What do you think?" I asked him. David looked down at Sophia. She had grabbed his finger in her tiny fist and was holding on tight. "I think she's our daughter," he said simply. "And I think we fight," Christine nodded. "Then here's what we need to do." Over the next 2 hours, Christine laid out a plan. She had already contacted a lawyer she trusted, a woman named Patricia Morgan, who specialized in adoption fraud cases and had a reputation for taking on powerful opponents. Patricia was willing to represent us pro bono if we agreed to let her expose the entire adoption ring. "She wants to bring down Dr. Castellano," Christine explained. "Your case is the key. You're sympathetic older couple, spent your life savings, bonded with the baby. And you're credible. You're not drug addicts or criminals. You're retired teachers with spotless records." "What about Elena's family?" I asked. "Does she have anyone who might want Isabella?" "Elena's mother died when she was young. Dr. Castellano was her only family. She was completely alone, which is why he was able to control her so easily." That broke my heart. This poor girl, threatened by her own father, died thinking no one cared about her baby. "So what's the first step?" David asked. "Patricia is filing an emergency motion today asking for temporary custody to remain with you while the investigation proceeds. But we need to go public. We need media attention. Once this story hits the news, it will be much harder for Dr. Castellano to make you or Isabella disappear." The idea of our private pain becoming public spectacle made me want to vomit. But Christine was right. Silence had allowed Dr. Castellano to operate for a decade. Silence had gotten Elena killed. "Okay," I said. "We go public." Christine made calls. By noon, Patricia Morgan had arrived at our motel room, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a briefcase full of legal documents. "Mr. and Mrs. Holloway," she said, shaking our hands. "I've reviewed Christine's evidence. This is one of the most egregious cases of adoption fraud I've seen in 20 years of practice. I'm going to do everything I can to help you keep your daughter." She laid out the legal strategy. She would file motions in family court, arguing that the adoption should stand despite the fraud, based on the best interests of the child. She would also file criminal complaints against Dr. Castellano with the State Attorney General's office. And she would coordinate with the FBI, because interstate adoption fraud was a federal crime. "This will take months, possibly years," Patricia warned. "And it will be brutal. Dr. Castellano will hire the best lawyers money can buy. He'll paint you as naive dupes who should have known something was wrong. He'll try to prove you're too old to be parents. Every detail of your life will be examined." "We can handle it," David said. "There's something else you should know," Patricia continued. "I've been researching Dr. Castellano's background. 3 years ago, a hospital nurse named Jennifer Walsh filed a complaint against him, alleging he had pressured her to give up her baby for adoption after she got pregnant. The complaint disappeared. Jennifer Walsh left the state and never pursued it further." "Why not?" I asked. "I don't know, but I'm going to find her and ask her to testify. If we can show a pattern of behavior, Elena, Jennifer, possibly others, it strengthens our case." Christine pulled out her phone. "There's someone else, a woman named Rachel Kim. She was a teenager when she had a baby at Sacred Heart 7 years ago. She claims she was pressured to sign adoption papers while still drugged from labor. Her parents tried to fight it, but Dr. Castellano's lawyers buried them in motions until they gave up." "Find her too," Patricia said. "I want to talk to every woman who might have been victimized by this man." Over the next week, we stayed in that motel room, hiding, while Patricia built our case. David and I took turns caring for Sophia, who seemed blissfully unaware that her entire future hung in the balance. Patricia returned on day 5 with news. I found Jennifer Walsh. She's living in Seattle now, remarried, with 2 kids. She's agreed to testify. She said Dr. Castellano told her that if she didn't give up her baby, he would report her to Child Protective Services for drug use. She wasn't using drugs, but he had falsified her medical records to make it look like she was. Jesus, David muttered. Rachel Kim is harder to find. Her family moved to California and changed their name. But I'm working on it. Patricia sat down. In the meantime, I need you both to write detailed statements about your adoption experience. Everything Christine told you, everything you paid, everything you were told about Elena. We're going to court next week for the temporary custody hearing. That hearing was the most terrifying 2 hours of my life. We sat in a cold courtroom while lawyers argued over whether we deserved to keep the baby we'd raised for 6 months. Dr. Castellano's lawyer, a slick man in a $3,000 suit, argued that we were victims of fraud and should surrender the child immediately to the state. My clients had no knowledge of any illegality, Patricia countered. They went through a licensed adoption attorney, paid appropriate fees, and bonded with this child for 6 months. To rip her away from the only parent she's ever known would be cruel and traumatic. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Marianne Foster, listened to both sides. Then she looked at us. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, do you understand that this adoption is under investigation and may be voided? Yes, Your Honor, I said. And you're prepared to fight for custody despite that? Yes, Your Honor. She's our daughter. We love her. Judge Foster looked at Sophia, who was sleeping peacefully in my arms. Temporary custody will remain with the Holloways, pending full investigation. Child Protective Services will conduct home visits every 2 weeks to ensure the child's safety and well-being. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a status hearing. I almost collapsed with relief. 60 more days. 2 more months to prove we deserved to be her parents. As we left the courthouse, I saw him for the first time. Dr. Richard Castellano stood near the entrance, flanked by his lawyers. He was tall, distinguished, with silver hair and cold eyes. When he saw me carrying Sophia, his expression darkened. Mrs. Holloway, he said, his voice smooth. I hope you understand you're making a terrible mistake. That child belongs with her real family. Her real family is dead, I replied. And you killed her. Careful with accusations, his lawyer warned. Slander is a serious offense. So is murder, Patricia said, stepping between us. Come on, Margaret. Don't engage. As we walked to our car, I felt Dr. Castellano's eyes on my back. This man had destroyed Elena. He'd stolen dozens of babies. He'd bought off police and judges and made himself untouchable. But he hadn't counted on one thing. A 8-year-old woman who had waited 30 years for a child and wasn't about to give her up without the fight of her life. The story broke 3 days later. Patricia had contacted a reporter at the Oregonian who specialized in investigative journalism. The headline read, Sacred Heart Hospital Administrator accused of running decade-long illegal adoption ring. The article detailed everything: Elena's death, the coerced adoptions, Jennifer Walsh's testimony, the financial records showing millions of dollars in illegal fees. It named Dr. Castellano directly and included Patricia's statement that we were fighting to keep Sophia. Within hours, the story went national. Our faces were suddenly everywhere, the older couple fighting to keep their adopted daughter from a corrupt hospital administrator. My phone exploded with messages. Some were supportive. Many were cruel. You're too old to be parents. Give the baby to a real family. You're selfish for keeping a stolen child. But there were also messages from other women. Women who said they'd given birth at Sacred Heart and been pressured to give up their babies. Women who said Dr. Castellano had lied to them, threatened them, forged their signatures. Patricia compiled every statement. By the end of the second week, she had testimony from 11 women spanning 8 years. The pattern was undeniable. Dr. Castellano had been running a criminal enterprise, and he'd gotten away with it because his victims were young, poor, and powerless. The FBI opened an official investigation. The state medical board suspended Dr. Castellano's license pending review. His lawyers issued statements calling the allegations baseless and a coordinated attack by disgruntled former patients. But the tide was turning. Public opinion shifted in our favor. We weren't villains. We were victims too, and we were the only ones willing to fight back. The FBI investigation moved slowly, but public outrage moved fast. Within 3 weeks of the story breaking, Sacred Heart Hospital's board of directors placed Dr. Castellano on administrative leave. Protesters gathered outside the hospital with signs reading, "Justice for Elena," and "Stolen babies, stolen lives." But Dr. Castellano wasn't going quietly. His legal team filed counter motions claiming we had knowingly participated in an illegal adoption. They subpoenaed our bank records, our emails, our phone logs. They deposed our friends and neighbors, asking leading questions designed to make us look like we'd been suspicious of the adoption from the start, but chose to look the other way. Did Mrs. Holloway ever express concern about how quickly the adoption was processed? Dr. Castellano's lawyer asked Barbara during her deposition. No, Barbara answered firmly. She was overjoyed. She'd wanted a baby for 30 years. This was her miracle. But didn't you find it strange that a 9-year-old birth mother would specifically request parents in their late 50s? I found it thoughtful, Barbara replied. Not strange. They went after David's finances, suggesting he had embezzled money to pay the adoption fee. They went after my mental health, pulling records from a therapist I'd seen 15 years ago after my 3rd miscarriage, trying to paint me as unstable. They're trying to bury us, David said one night after we'd spent 12 hours with Patricia reviewing depositions. Sophia was asleep in her crib in our new apartment. We'd moved out of the motel into a small 2-bedroom place in Beaverton, away from our old neighborhood where reporters had started camping out. They're failing, Patricia said. Every witness they put up makes them look worse. And I have good news. Rachel Kim agreed to testify. Rachel Kim was now 26 years old, married, with a baby daughter of her own. She'd been only 19 when she gave birth at Sacred Heart Hospital 7 years ago. Dr. Castellano had told her that her baby had died during delivery. Rachel had been devastated. But 3 months later, she'd seen a photo in the newspaper, a couple celebrating their new adopted baby. Rachel had recognized the birthmark on the baby's foot. It was her daughter. I hired a private investigator, Rachel told us, when we met at Patricia's office. He confirmed it. My baby didn't die. She was adopted by a couple in Seattle who paid Dr. Castellano $75,000. When I tried to get my daughter back, Dr. Castellano's lawyers threatened me with a lawsuit. They said I'd signed all the paperwork, but I never signed anything. I was unconscious from the anesthesia when they told me she was dead. Do you want your daughter back now? I asked quietly. I had to know. If there were other mothers out there whose children had been stolen, they deserved justice too. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I did. For years I dreamed about it. But she's 7 years old now. She doesn't know me. Her adoptive parents, they didn't know she was stolen. They love her. They're good people. She wiped her eyes. I just want Dr. Castellano to pay for what he did. And I want to make sure no other mother has to go through what I went through. Patricia leaned forward. If you testify about what happened to you, it establishes a pattern. It proves Dr. Castellano has been doing this for years. It makes Margaret and David's case much stronger. Then I'll testify, Rachel said. The status hearing came 60 days after the first custody hearing. Judge Foster's courtroom was packed journalists, advocates, other victims of Dr. Castellano's scheme. He sat at the defense table, still composed, still confident, flanked by 3 high-priced lawyers. Patricia presented her case methodically. She showed the financial records proving Dr. Castellano had collected over $3 million in illegal adoption fees over a decade. She presented testimony from Jennifer Walsh, who described being threatened into giving up her baby. She presented Rachel Kim's testimony about being told her baby had died when the baby had actually been sold. Then she presented something new, something we hadn't known about. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce evidence that Dr. Castellano's illegal adoption operation led directly to Elena Torres's death. She pulled up an email on the courtroom's display screen. It was from Dr. Castellano to Elena, dated February 28th, 5 days before Elena died. You have 2 choices, the email read. Keep quiet and live your life, or go to the authorities and lose everything. I've already prepared evidence showing you stole medications from the hospital. I've already prepared witnesses who will testify you were an unfit mother. If you try to expose me, I will destroy you, and you will never see your daughter again." The courtroom erupted. Judge Foster banged her gavel for order. "Where did you obtain this email?" Judge Foster asked. "Elena forwarded it to a friend the day before she died," Patricia explained. "She told her friend that if anything happened to her, it wasn't suicide." The friend came forward after reading about our case. Dr. Castellano's lead attorney stood. "Your Honor, that email is inadmissible. It's hearsay, and it's been taken out of context. It's evidence of witness tampering and intimidation," Patricia shot back. "And it establishes motive for murder." "Murder?" Dr. Castellano's attorney scoffed. "Miss Torres's death was ruled a suicide by the medical examiner. A medical examiner who reports to Sacred Heart Hospital's administration," Patricia said. "The same hospital where Dr. Castellano was chief administrator. I've filed a motion to have Elena Torres's death investigated as a homicide." The courtroom exploded again. Reporters were typing frantically. Dr. Castellano's composed expression finally cracked. I saw fear flash across his face. Judge Foster called for a recess. When we reconvened 2 hours later, Dr. Castellano's legal team had a new strategy. "Your Honor," his lead attorney said, "my client is prepared to surrender all parental rights to the child known as Isabella Torres. He acknowledges that the adoption was conducted improperly, and he believes the child's best interests would be served by remaining with Mr. and Mrs. Holloway." I grabbed David's hand. Was this really happening? "However," the attorney continued, "in exchange for this agreement, my client requests immunity from any criminal prosecution related to the adoption of this specific child." "Absolutely not," Patricia said immediately. "He doesn't get to trade away his granddaughter's custody to escape justice." Judge Foster looked at Dr. Castellano. "This child is your biological grandchild. You're willing to sever all legal rights to her?" Dr. Castellano stood. For the first time, he looked old and tired. "I never wanted children, Your Honor. I certainly never wanted grandchildren. My daughter made her choices, and I made mine. If these people want to raise the baby, let them. I'm done." He was throwing Sophia away like garbage, like she'd never mattered at all. My fury was so intense I could barely breathe. Judge Foster was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm denying the immunity request. Dr. Castellano, you're facing criminal charges regardless of what happens in this custody case. However, I am terminating your parental rights as the child's closest living relative, and I'm granting full legal custody to Margaret and David Holloway, effective immediately." The courtroom erupted in applause. David pulled me into his arms, and we both sobbed with relief. Patricia was smiling, tears streaming down her face. Sophia, our Sophia, was legally ours. But Judge Foster wasn't finished. "I want to be very clear," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "This adoption was founded on fraud and coercion. Under normal circumstances, I would void it and place the child in foster care. But these are not normal circumstances. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway have proven themselves to be devoted, capable parents. They've bonded with this child for 7 months. And most importantly, they were the only people willing to fight for justice, not just for themselves, but for Elena Torres and all the other women victimized by Dr. Castellano's criminal enterprise." She looked directly at us. "This child deserves parents who will fight for her. You've proven you're those parents. Congratulations." We walked out of that courthouse with our daughter, legally and forever ours. The crowd outside cheered, reporters shouted questions. But all I could focus on was Sophia, sleeping peacefully in my arms, finally safe. The criminal case against Dr. Castellano took another year to resolve. The FBI investigation uncovered evidence of 33 illegal adoptions over 12 years. Federal prosecutors charged him with wire fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, and intimidation of witnesses. The state charged him with forging medical documents and practicing medicine unethically. Elena's death was officially reopened as a suspicious death investigation. While they couldn't prove Dr. Castellano had physically pushed her off that bridge, They found evidence he'd arranged for someone to follow her the night she died. Text messages showed him coordinating with a man who had a history of violence. That man eventually took a plea deal and testified that Dr. Castellano had paid him $50,000 to make sure Elena didn't talk. It wasn't a murder conviction, but it was enough. Combined with all the other charges, Dr. Castellano faced 70 years in federal prison. At his sentencing hearing, the judge was unsparing. "You exploited vulnerable women at their most vulnerable moments," the judge said. "You sold babies like commodities. You destroyed families. And when one brave young woman tried to stop you, you had her killed. I hope you spend every remaining day of your life contemplating the lives you've ruined." Dr. Richard Castellano was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. He would be 103 years old if he lived to see release. Sacred Heart Hospital paid out a $15 million settlement to the victims of the adoption ring. Jennifer Walsh received $2 million. Rachel Kim received $2 million. We received $2.5 million, not because we wanted it, but because Patricia insisted. "You spent your life savings adopting Sophia," she said. "This money ensures you can give her the future she deserves." We put most of it in a trust fund for Sophia's education. We used some to pay Patricia's legal fees. She'd said she'd work pro bono, but she'd spent hundreds of hours fighting for us. And we used a portion to establish the Elena Torres Foundation, a nonprofit that provides legal assistance to women fighting adoption fraud. Christine Reed lost her law license. She cooperated fully with authorities and testified against Dr. Castellano, which kept her out of prison, but she could never practice law again. The last time I saw her, she was working as a paralegal at a small firm and volunteering with the Elena Torres Foundation. "I'll never forgive myself," she told me. "I helped him steal babies. I helped him destroy families." "You also helped us keep Sophia," I reminded her. "If you hadn't called us that night, if you hadn't exposed the truth, Dr. Castellano would still be operating. Elena's death would still be called a suicide. You did the right thing in the end." "It doesn't feel like enough," she said. "It's more than most people would have done." Now, 2 years after that terrifying 2 a.m. phone call, I'm sitting in our backyard watching Sophia, our beautiful, perfect Sophia, play in her sandbox. She's 2.5 years old now, with curly dark hair and her mother's dark eyes. She doesn't know yet that the grandmother she'll never meet died fighting to protect her. But someday, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her about Elena Torres. I'll tell her about a brave young woman who refused to let her daughter be sold, who gathered evidence against her own father, who died trying to do the right thing. And I'll tell her that her mother loved her enough to die for her, and that David and I loved her enough to fight for her. "Mama!" Sophia calls out now, holding up a plastic shovel. "Help!" I walk over and kneel beside her in the sand. "What do you need, sweetheart?" "Dig," she says, grinning. So I dig. I dig a hole in the sand, and Sophia fills it with plastic dinosaurs, and David comes out with lemonade and joins us. We're a family unconventional, battle-scarred, forged in crisis, but a family nonetheless. My phone buzzes with a text. It's from Jennifer Walsh, one of the other mothers who testified against Dr. Castellano. She sends a photo of her daughter, the baby she was forced to give up 9 years ago. Through the Elena Torres Foundation, Jennifer connected with her daughter's adoptive parents. They agreed to let Jennifer be part of their daughter's life. In the photo, Jennifer is at her daughter's 9th birthday party, smiling as the girl blows out candles. "Found. Family," the text reads. "Thank you for fighting so we could all heal." I text back a heart emoji and watch Sophia play. I'm 60 years old now. I'll be 78 when Sophia graduates high school. I might not live to see her get married or have children of her own, but I'll give her every moment I have, every ounce of love, every protection, because that's what mothers do. Not just biological mothers, but all mothers, the ones who fight for their children against impossible odds, the ones who refuse to give up when everyone says they should, the ones who prove that family isn't just about blood. It's about love. It's about choice. It's about standing up and saying, "This is my child, and I will protect her with everything I have." Elena Torres did that. She died doing it. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure her sacrifice meant something, making sure her daughter knows she was loved from the moment she was born by the mother who died for her and by the parents who fought to keep her. David wraps his arm around me. What are you thinking about? How lucky we are, I say. We are, he agrees. Even with everything we went through. Especially because of everything we went through. I watch Sophia, who's now making a sandcastle with intense concentration. We were meant to be her parents. I really believe that. So do I, David says. Sophia looks up and sees us watching her. Her whole face lights up. Mama! Dada! Look! She's built a lopsided sandcastle with a plastic flag on top. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's perfect, I tell her. Just perfect. She claps her hands, delighted with herself, and goes back to building. And I sit there in the sunshine, holding my husband's hand, watching our daughter play, and I think about the long road that brought us here. The decades of heartbreak, the miracle adoption that turned out to be a crime, the fight to keep her, the battle against a powerful man who thought he was above the law. It was worth it. Every terrifying moment, every sleepless night, every legal bill and depositions and public scrutiny. Because at the end of it all, we have this. A little girl who calls us Mama and Dada, who trusts us completely, who will grow up knowing she was worth fighting for. Last week, we went to the cemetery where Elena Torres is buried. Her grave is simple, just a small headstone that reads Elena Marie Torres, beloved daughter and mother, 1999 to 2019. Someone had left fresh flowers. Maybe Rachel Kim, or Jennifer Walsh, or one of the other mothers in the support group we'd all formed through the Elena Torres Foundation. I knelt and placed my own flowers, white roses, Elena's favorite according to the friend who'd kept her email. Sophia toddled around the cemetery, picking dandelions, completely unaware of the significance of where we were. I'm taking care of her, I whispered to Elena's grave. I promise you. I'm taking care of your daughter. She's happy. She's healthy. She's loved. And when she's old enough, I'll tell her everything about you. I'll make sure she knows what you did for her. The wind rustled through the trees, and just for a moment, I felt a sense of peace. Like Elena's restless spirit had finally found rest, knowing her daughter was safe. Now, months later, as I watch Sophia play, I think about what Patricia said during our final meeting after the adoption was finalized. You know what makes you different from Dr. Castellano? She'd asked. He saw babies as commodities, as things to be bought and sold and controlled. But you see Sophia as a person, as someone with her own story, her own mother, her own history. You're honoring Elena by being honest about where Sophia came from. That's what makes you her real parents. She was right. Sophia will grow up knowing she's adopted. She'll know about Elena. And she'll know that love is complicated, that family is more than biology, that sometimes the right thing is also the hardest thing. David's phone rings. He answers, then hands it to me. It's Patricia. Margaret! Patricia sounds excited. I just got word. The last of Dr. Castellano's appeals was denied. The conviction stands. It's over. Completely over. I close my eyes, feeling 2 years of tension finally release. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for trusting me. And Margaret? You should know since your case broke, we've seen a 300% increase in reports of adoption fraud. Women are coming forward who never would have spoken up before. You started something. You and David and Elena. After we hang up, I tell David the news. He pulls me close and kisses my forehead. We did it, he says. We actually did it. We did. I agree. Sophia runs over, sand all over her dress and in her hair. Up, she demands. I scoop her up, sand and all, and hold her tight. She smells like sunshine and baby shampoo and home. Love you, Mama, she says, wrapping her small arms around my neck. Love you more, baby girl, I whisper back, more than you'll ever know. And in that moment, holding my daughter, surrounded by family, I realize something profound. I spent 30 years grieving the children I couldn't have, the pregnancies that ended, the biological family I would never create. But if any of those pregnancies had succeeded, I wouldn't have Sophia. I wouldn't have fought in that courtroom. I wouldn't have exposed Dr. Castellano's crimes. I wouldn't have met Rachel and Jennifer and all the other brave women who became my friends and allies. Sometimes the family you're meant to have isn't the one you imagined. Sometimes it's better. That night, after Sophia is asleep, David and I sit on the couch looking through photo albums. We've made books documenting every stage of Sophia's life. The first day we brought her home, her first smile, her first tooth, her first steps. And we've included photos of Elena too, pictures Christine found of her as a teenager, smiling and young and alive. She would have been a good mother, David says, looking at Elena's photo. She was a good mother. I correct. She died protecting her daughter. That's the most mother thing anyone can do. We've also started writing letters to Sophia to be given to her when she's older. Letters explaining everything that happened. How Elena loved her. How we fought for her. How an entire community rallied to make sure she stayed safe. My letter from tonight reads, Dear Sophia, today you built a sandcastle and called me Mama, and I realized I'm the luckiest woman in the world. Not because the road to you was easy, it wasn't. Not because you're mine, in any legal or biological sense. You're your own person, with your own story. I'm lucky because I get to be your mom. I get to watch you grow. I get to love you. Your birth mother, Elena, loved you so much she died trying to protect you. I love you so much I fought to keep you. Between the two of us, you're the most loved child in the world. Don't ever forget that. Love always, Mom. I closed the journal and put it away in Sophia's memory box, a collection of letters, photos, legal documents, and news articles that will someday tell her the full story of where she came from and why she matters. Ready for bed? David asks. In a minute. I walk to Sophia's room and stand in the doorway, watching her sleep. Her chest rises and falls steadily. Her hand is curled around her favorite stuffed rabbit. She's peaceful, safe, loved. This is what we fought for. This exact moment, this exact peace, and it was worth every battle. As I finally climb into bed beside David, I think about Dr. Castellano sitting in his prison cell, probably still convinced he did nothing wrong. I think about Elena's grave with fresh flowers. I think about the 11 women who testified, and the dozens more who came forward afterward. I think about all the stolen babies, scattered across the country, growing up with families who may or may not know the truth. But mostly, I think about Sophia, about her future, about the fact that she'll grow up knowing she was worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth everything. She'll know that family is complicated, that love is fierce, that sometimes the right choice is also the hardest choice, and she'll know that she's exactly where she belongs, with us, forever. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that uncover the hidden truths of everyday life. There are so many more untold stories waiting to be revealed. Thank you for being here. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in their place? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them with me in the comments below. On the screen, you can see 2 more life stories I strongly recommend. There are many more waiting on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.